Hello and welcome to the Jeepin Bubba podcast. I'm your host, Brad Jeepin Bubba Coron, and this podcast is brought to you by our sponsors, Black Bear Off-Road and S3 Magazine. You can check out Black Bear Off-Road at blackbearoffroad.com and download the free app on both Apple and Android for S3 Mag. Absolutely free, lots of cool automotive content, and we just finished an article on the Jeep Comanche build we're doing for SEMA. Go check that guy out if you guys haven't yet. I'd love if y'all would check that out. So typically the way this works when I don't have a guest is that we have a segment where we go through the news, then we go through things I'd like you to know, and then we cover recovery, and then sometimes I have topics or something I might want to go off and rant about, and then we close it off. So kind of got those four segments. Today I'm going to switch it up because the meat of this podcast is something I want you to know. And it really has nothing to do with off-roading. It's actually a personal matter, and I don't have to talk about it at all, but I feel like it would help explain things to a lot of people, local or who have come in contact with me in the off-road community or sponsors or that kind of thing. It may help answer questions for those that may watch this on YouTube or listen to it on Spotify or wherever you get your podcast. So I'm going to do a lot of prefacing. I'm going to start by saying that not only is this a personal matter, but it's a religious matter. So, growing up in the South, talking about religion could potentially lead to an argument or a fight. And so I'd like to preface this by saying that what I'm going to be talking about is my beliefs, not necessarily, they don't necessarily reflect the beliefs of the church I attend, or necessarily my business as a whole, although I am the face of the business and the owner. So I'd also like to say that whatever your belief is, whether you're Christian, Jewish, Muslim, or atheist, agnostic, Catholic, whatever it is, I definitely hold no judgment towards you, nor am I promoting anything. I'm not trying to call anybody here tonight or this evening as I record this. I'm not trying to promote my religion or push it on you. This really is just an explanation of myself, and some people who are close to me or grew up around me, they know this. So I don't want to build this up into too much suspense, but I just want to say that just because I believe this doesn't mean I believe if you believe something else that you're damned to hell, or that something bad or terrible is going to happen to you, or that I hate you, or that Avery's worked with me for years. Not super religious. I think he does believe in God, but he even told Evan when he started working here, he goes, Brad's a Christian and he believes certain things, and so there's certain things that he does that are a little bit different than maybe other shops that you've worked in, and don't worry about it. Like you don't have to you don't have to act like you're super religious or something around them. Just the one that drives me crazy is GD. Like you're not going to hear me say it, and I wouldn't say if you believed in another God, I wouldn't damn him or say a curse word or whatever, like out of respect to you, whether I believe that you're treat others like you want to be treated, right? That's the golden rule. It's pretty universal. And I think that's it. I think I've prefaced and I've covered my grounds. I've been as PC as possible. So there's no way we'd have to sit here for like 8 hours for me to tell you every in and out of my religious beliefs. But I am a Christian. I'm a non-denominational Christian, and I grew up in the church that I still currently attend. My grandfather was a pastor when I was a kid. He still is in a different church. My father's a pastor. Wasn't always a pastor. He ran a landscape business for 30 years. He's been a pastor now for 6 or 7, I believe, maybe 5. He's down in Florida, and the church that he attends is also the same church I attend. We're an international organization, so it's based out of Texas, the home office, and again, that's getting into the weeds. So it's really more me talking about my personal things than it is that. And what sets us apart that from modern mainstream religions is that, and I don't want to get too deep because we need to get a Bible out, we need to go through verses, and then people are going to want to argue in the comments, and that's not what I want. If you want to talk to me about it, I'm not shy or ashamed or afraid to talk to you about it, whether it's in person or on email, on a phone call or text or whatever. I have with people before. Me and Silver Dollar have talked about it hours over the fire and things like that. But our main thing is that's different is that most mainstream religions follow the New Testament. They're the New Testament church. They believe that when Christ died on the cross, that there was a New Testament church that came in. And if you know anything about Judaism, they basically follow the Old Testament, and they don't believe that Jesus of Nazareth was the true Christ and that he came and died. And so they're still waiting on that. So, and that's a sloppy overview, and that's, we could nitpick that pretty good too. But that I'm just trying to give a generalization to not be overly confusing. So like, we would be a blend of those two. Okay, and some people are like, oh, okay, I get it. You're Seventh-day Adventist, or you're Jehovah's Witness, or something like that. Not exactly. There are some things that we differentiate on. But the one thing I wanted to talk about is that I don't want to say we a lot tonight. I want to say I, because it is what I believe. It's what I grew up in. And I had the choice. I wasn't baptized until I was almost 30 years old. And that's because my parents believed that, it was ultimately my choice. If they wanted to make sure this is, they didn't push it on me. I even had options growing up, even in high school, to whether or not I wanted to attend or whatever. And they weren't strict. They'd say, okay, if you're going to live this way of life, then we'll hold you to the standard as well. But if you don't, that's fine. It's ultimately your choice. So the main thing for us that's different, the thing I want to talk about, is that we believe in the seventh-day Sabbath, which would be Saturday. And not only would it be Saturday, it would be sunset on Friday until sunset on Saturday. And that would be our Sabbath. And it's the same for Jews, for Judaism, the sunset. And you're like, well, where do you get that from? You can follow... you can go on weather.com and literally see what time sunset is. You can see when sunrise is. You can see when the next sunset. So, like, when's your Sabbath, Brad? Oh, it's all day Saturday? Well, not necessarily, because once the sun sets on Saturday, I'd be out of that Sabbath. And a lot of people say, well, that's fine. The Sabbath can be any day of the week, or my Sabbath's on Sunday. And I totally respect that. And I won't get into that debate on this podcast. That's not the point of it. But the reason I'm saying it is because that's the reason that Black Bear Off-Road is closed Friday. Usually we close a little early on Friday. People go, oh, you just wanted to get home to get to the family. True. But it's because I can't work after sunset. And some people treat the Sabbath differently, even in Orthodox Judaism, or even in, let's say you're a Baptist, and you're like, well, Sunday's my Sabbath. It's day of rest. We don't work. We don't open our business. People have different ideas of what resting is, and again, I'm not going to argue that, because some people would say, well, we'd go to church, and then after that, we'd go to the Falcons football game. That's not something I would necessarily do, and I'm not condemning somebody that would do that. I'm just telling you what I believe. So, for me, this is what I believe the Sabbath means, and it would mean to not do any customary work. So I wouldn't do my job. I also couldn't. Anyone that works for me couldn't work that day. Not for me, anyways. They can go work elsewhere, but they can't work for Black Bear Off Road that day. And the other thing would be it's a day centered around God. We go to church. I go to church in Gainesville, 10:30 in the morning till typically we get at about 12:30. We'll usually go get lunch, and typically I'd go home and we'd like to get a nap. That's our favorite thing. But if not, we might do a little Bible study or listen to something. Typically, I'm not watching a college football game. I'm not out playing golf. I'm not doing something along those lines. If I'm going to watch TV, I'm typically watching a documentary or something along those lines. But I want to keep that day set aside to, one, rest my mind, rest my body, but also put God at the center of that day. And so if I'm doing something that's distracting, that's not going to work. You know what I mean? And so that's typically what I do. Now, there have been nights where I get off at, especially in the winter, when sun sets again at 5:30, and I know I've got to catch up on some work, or I need to get prepared for Sunday. Maybe we're having a show. Then I'll go do that. So it's that sunset to sunset, and we believe a lot of other things. I believe a lot of other things. And again, I'm not going to get into all that. But it's very similar to most Christian church. If you came to our church, we're not holding snakes or something like that. We have a song service, prayer, a sermon, another prayer, a song, and so it's not anything odd. We read from the New King James Bible. It's not like we've got a Book of Mormon. Again, not judging anyone out there or saying anything bad about anyone. I'm just explaining what I believe. So I'm going to go into depth a little bit more on that. So what does that have to do with Jeeping and off-roading and any of those things? Well, I get invited a lot to events. And, if it's let's just say Jeep Beach. I can't be at that racetrack on Saturday in that booth in good conscience, because there's no way my brain's going to be centered around God. I'm going to be thinking about Jeeps, talking about Jeeps. And you'd say, well, you're just hanging out, you're talking with people, you're fellowshipping. That may be true, but something's going to get brought up about Black Bear Off-Road. Something is going to be work-related. I'm going to help someone set up a tent. I'm going to do something along those lines. And I'm going to be breaking my Sabbath. And I don't think that if it's what I believe is true, then I don't think that... Sorry, let me get a little water. If that's what I believe is true, then it's hypocritical for me to be living a different way. And I will say, before I was baptized and coming up in the industry, I was definitely not perfect. And I'll tell you now, you might say... I posted a video of me singing in church last week, or maybe Sunday or something, on Facebook. A lot of people say, "Whoa, we didn't know you sang," or even that I believed in God, or I was a Christian, or something like that. And that's because I'm not a Bible thumper. I'm not someone who's gonna you walk in, or "You saved, boy." I grew up around that, and I find that by being an example is the best way to preach God's gospel. And if somebody has a question, why do you act like this, or do this things this way? That's the best way, in my opinion. And you can do whatever you want. And you might also say, well, Brad, I've seen you do this before. I think that's a sin. Well, I'm definitely not perfect. There has only been one perfect man to walk on this earth, and that was Jesus Christ. And I'm learning and growing, and I'm developing, and I try to be a better person every day than I was the day before. And if you compare me to where I was at when I was, a teenager, to my 20s, now in my 30s, getting closer to 40, I've changed a lot. I'm definitely a different man today than I was, 15 years ago or whatever. And I think that is my point in this life. That's my purpose, is to grow in character, to just strive to be as Christ-like as possible. That's to me what embodies a Christian. And the reason, You might say, why do you keep the Sabbath? Why do you believe that? Well, we can go to a lot of scriptures. We can talk about in Genesis when God set aside the seventh day and made it holy. We can talk about a lot of different things in the Bible. But if you look, what was Jesus Christ? He was a Jew. He was from Israel, and he kept the Sabbath on Saturday. So for me, that's a simple explanation, and a theologian can go into that with you. And again, this could be a big debate, and I hate to keep prefacing because I'm just trying not to make this an overly religious podcast. But I think I want to live as close to the way Christ did as possible. That's going to be physically impossible for me. I am a man. I'm a sinner. I'm carnal by nature, and I'm trying. But there's certain things that are kind of lines in the sand. You've got to, if I was going to try to become better every day, you've got to start somewhere. Whether it's making your bed or reading a scripture or saying a prayer, you've got to start somewhere. I'm guilty of sometimes, like, I want to, this year I'm going to be better. So I want to lose weight. I want to eat healthier. I want to read the Bible more. I want to take more time with my family, more time with my kids. And it becomes so big and hard to chew that I'm like, you don't accomplish any of them. A business guy told me once, find 3 things that your business needs to improve on next year and then focus on one. Because you'll find by the end of the year, if you focus on 12, you didn't accomplish any of them. And so one of those things for me is the Sabbath. It's a great day for me because it's my one day that I pull myself back out of the Jeep world and the off-road world. And it's good for my brain. It's good for my mind. I do spend a lot of time with family. We focus on that. Our kids go to church with us. My wife's involved at church. And I'm actually a song leader at church. I'm an usher. And it's a big part of my life. I enjoy it. Definitely not ashamed or bashful about it. But again, I think there's a certain stigmatism with the modern Christian that you've got to put on a show, a face around people, and you're always afraid to make a mistake. I mean, we're going to do that, and all I can do is try, repent, and try to overcome. And so that's it. I just really wanted to cover. That's why we're closed on Saturday. That's why I don't join trail rides on Saturday. That's why I don't do events on Saturday or what have you. And I've had people invite me, and they're upset sometimes that I say I can't go. Please, with benefits this or that. I think that's great. And I hope you guys have a great time. It's just not going to work for me. So what I have to do, if there's an event on a Sunday, and again, I understand that's some people's Sabbath. We've had Jeep nights on Wednesdays, and that's when people have Bible study. I totally understand that. And I'm glad you guys have made that commitment. And this isn't I think you're right or I think I'm right and you're wrong situation. This is just what I believe, and I wanted to explain that. And I'm going to go into depth a little bit about how I've made it work. Okay? So I've been self-employed now for 7 years, and I had my landscape business, and now I got Black Bear Off-Road, and that certainly made things easier because I can't blame the boss. I can't blame losing my job or career. And ultimately those weren't excuses anyways because I know that God's going to take care of me. At least that's my belief, regardless. But what I've done, and you guys may have noticed this trend or picked up on it or whatever, I like going to shows, especially Jeep Beach, Smoky Mountain Jeep Invasion. I like being at shows. My favorite thing is interacting with people. I like talking to the different vendors. And the nice thing is, a lot of the shows are Thursday or Friday, Saturday and Sunday, Friday and Saturday, something like that. 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, whatever. And so I can be at a couple of the days, and it's no conflict of interest. It's not a problem. It's no issue. But it doesn't make a lot of sense for me to, got a hiccup. It doesn't make a lot of sense for me to set up a booth, on a Friday, break it down on Saturday, and set it back up on Sunday. And then this is just a business decision, but a lot of these shows where I see other shops that go and sell, and it's sometimes where they make their most money in the year, they have to bring a lot of inventory. They have to sell that inventory at a discount, whether it's 10, 15, 20% off. So they're having to buy in bulk from the vendors to try to get 30 or 40 to make it worth their while. They've got gas, accommodations, the vehicle. There's a lot that goes into it. And some of them got it figured out to a science. I'm not going to say any shop names, but I could think of one particular company that has been doing it for years. I think they do a great job at it. And they're at everything, and they sell, and they do good. I've done that at Scottles. I brought out a table, and we've sold some things, and it works. But I don't think it'd work for the big shows for me. I have a friend, Jim. Shout out Jim Ward if you're listening. He's him and his wife breed snakes. I know that grosses a lot of people out. It grosses me out, but I like Jim a lot. So I'm just gonna have to. I love him, and I know he loves his hobby. So and he's a Jeeper as well. You might have seen him in some videos if you watch the YouTube channel. Lives up in Michigan. And they do these snake shows or reptile shows, and he just closes the booth down on Saturday, puts a note up, hey, we have a prior commitment. We're not going to be here today. We'll be back tomorrow. And that's the way he does it. And he still is able to run a business that way and have successful shows. And he also makes snake. They're like enclosures, displays. They're beautiful. He's a craftsman. He does a good job with that. So what I've found that's worked for me, and I've been fortunate, some would even say blessed, to have made the connections that I've made to be able to do what I do. And the big part of that for me is Wooly with S3, Andy from Can Cut. Because what I've figured out I could do is I could put a vehicle on display at a show. Okay? And I did it last year at a couple shows with Can Cut. I've done it with a few other companies. And it benefits them in a couple ways. It benefits them because if they get a larger footprint of a booth, they have their tents, and maybe they have a Jeep. Andy has a Jeep. But then we have a second Jeep in the vehicle, in the booth. It fills it in, makes it look better. And then the person coming, me, I can promote his booth. Hey, I'll be in the Can Cut booth. Come and see me. I'll be there all day Friday, or I'll be here between 12 and 3 or 4. I just got back from Save Expo. I did this exact thing. We set up in their booth with Silver Dollar Adventures, Katrina from Can Cut. We sat in there, and we set up on Thursday night. Friday, I'm at the show. I did take some time to go film, walk around, what have you. And but a lot of the day I'm in the booth. And then Saturday we left. We separated ourselves from that, and then came back Saturday evening. Sunset happened, hung out there the rest of the day. Sunday broke down, came home. So that's what I found that works for me is I've been able to attach myself with some great companies. Can Cut's been huge. I talked to Andy about it. He's like, I love it. I understand. That's your thing. That's great. Anytime that that you want to be in the booth or we want to do something, let's do it. And what I try to do in return is to help promote him, because he's doing such a great job at letting me be there. The benefit for me is I'm at a major show, my Jeep's in it, a lot of foot traffic. You see Black Bear Off-Road on the front of it. And then I get to promote a good friend and a company that makes great products. So it's win-win-win all around. I'm always looking for that. And, he advertises with S3 Magazine. I write for S3 Magazine. I'm friends with the owner, Wooly. And so, I love when we can create these communities where everyone's winning and helping one another. Andy's given us drill bits in the past to help us in the shop, and I've worked on his vehicles and helped build his vehicles. Sometimes whether it's at cost or for free, or maybe it's for a magazine article for S3, and so we're all kind of like in the same boat together because we all have the same vision. We love cars. We love the automotive industry. We love our small business that we're trying to grow. We have a lot of the same struggles, and we're just trying to build and grow and get to the next level. And we like to do that. It's easier with friends. It's easier when we have people working with us. So, that's one of the reasons I love SEMA so much, is because it's a weekday show. It's like I miss work, and that's not great, but what is great is that I don't have to worry about anything. It's like it's during the week. So we're going to be bringing the Comanche out to Jeep Beach this year. It'll be in the booth. I'm going to hang out as long as I can on Friday, and I might walk around and film some. And then Saturday, we just won't be at the show. Usually I have to go by and pick up my Jeep. That's no big deal. Just get Uber over there, and Nicole drops me off, walk in, pick it up, say bye to Andy, or we might hang out Sunday. We're going to be at Jeep Jam in Panama City. I'm going to be in the Empower booth there. I got my shirt on today. It's got some weld holes in it. Don't worry, I got a fresh, weld hole right there. You'll have to trust me for just listening to this podcast. But we're going to be in their booth at Jeep Jam in Panama City. We'll be in their booth as well at Smoky Mountain Jeep Invasion. Blue Jeep will be in that booth. And then the Comanche will be in Can-Cut Smoky Mountain Jeep Invasion booth. So we'll have 2 vehicles there. And then SEMA will be in the Empower booth. And I think I mentioned this to you guys in the last podcast. I've definitely been talking about it. So that's the plan. And we might do some other stuff. We got Scottles and Bottles coming up. It's on the 23rd in March, which is a Sunday. So Lifts and Lager Scottles are great. They're on Sundays. I usually pack everything up on Friday before I leave work. And then I just come pick it up at the shop, go down, do the show. No big deal. And, it's kind of nice because we do spend a lot of time with family. My sister and her husband goes to church with us as well. And so we get to see them. A lot of times we get to go to lunch with them. We have our, church family and the kids. And so we get to spend that time. So it makes it a little bit easier if I've got to go do a show Sunday. I try to take a Sunday a month to make sure I spend it as well with them. And we're also not open on Sundays, and the main reason is because I would never want to tell my employees, hey, we're closed on Saturday because of my religious beliefs, but I'm going to make you come in Sunday because I don't, it's no problem with my religious belief. I want to make sure they have the opportunity, whether it's they want to go to church on Sunday or they want to spend the day with family. It's important to me that they have that time. And we typically work 45 to 50 plus hours Monday through Friday. We're open 9 to 6. A lot of times the guys are getting here a little bit earlier than 9. A lot of times they're leaving a little bit after 6. Right now it's 8:04. I'm here doing a podcast. I was just down in the lower shop with my buddy Steven mocking up some shock brackets on the Comanche. We've been working on it all day. And getting it prepped and prepared. So I like to give that time off. And could we make more money if we were open Saturday and Sunday? Probably. Do you think my guys would be as happy? I'd be as happy? Or do I personally believe that God would be happy with me? No. So ultimately that's why I do it. Again, I'm not a perfect human being. I'm not the perfect example. I didn't get into the deep details of scripture and things like that. You might have a lot of questions for me. My church is called Church of God. My church. It's not definitely not my church. The church I attend is called the Church of God, a Worldwide Association. We have a website, cogwa.org. And again, I'm not pushing that. I'm not telling you to go look at that. But if you were like, what is Brad talking about? What cult is this guy involved in? Sorry, I just dropped a pen. That's definitely not the case. I just wanted you guys, maybe if you had some questions, what religion is he? What is this? There it is. It's there. Hopefully that wasn't too painful. I've honestly wanted to somehow publicly put this out because I've told a lot of people in private or just, in my office or at a show or something, we've gone over it. It's awkward to do it in the moment. Oh man, why aren't you going to be at the show tomorrow? And it's like, oh man, we're just going to hang out with the family. It gets, we're going to church. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean anything. What religion are you? That sort of thing. And we've had problems with like Friday nights here where like a customer just won't leave. And I'm like, I tried to close, 30 minutes or more in advance before our Sabbath starts at sunset. And they're just like, it's run down to the wire. I hate that. Don't want that. It's not the way I want it to be. And I don't want to be like, listen, man, this is my religious belief. You got to get out the door. I'm not pushy like that. And, it's awkward for me to be pushy. So that's that. Hopefully you're not confused and I've explained it in a good way. I think that kind of goes over all of it. You could say, well, what if because Lee's asked me this. What if you set up a show and I just work for you on Saturday in the booth, or just I work it for you, or I do this, and you don't have to pay me. That is a gray area. That is not somewhere I want to be. I don't want to. It's kind of awkward, and I think it would still be somebody working for me and promoting my business, and it's not a situation I like to put us in. I have thought of doing joint booths before, like me and another company, or me and someone else, and like Friday, I run it as me, and then I think me and Russ did that once. We did actually. We did it at Maggie Valley, at the show up there, and so Friday I set up, Black Bear Off-Road, boom, boom, boom. And then Saturday, it was the Adventure Russ booth. It's just the way we did it, and that worked, so that, like, I could do it, and then there would still be somebody there in that space during that time. That worked. It's a rare opportunity. It's rare that would happen. I guess I did want to mention one other thing about off-roading. There are a couple times a year where we'll go camp on a Saturday. And typically the way I try to do it is that we'd go to church in the morning, get out, maybe go home, change, or we'll bring a change of clothes with us, and then we'll go ride somewhere easy. I never want to put myself on a trail where I might have to get out and winch or fix something. There's a phrase that some people are familiar with called an ox in a ditch situation. So if you were going down the road and your ox goes off in the ditch, or you see your modern version of it, I'm going down the road and I see that someone's battery's dead, they're on the side of the road, and there's no one around, they don't have a cell, or need a flat tire, I can go help that person. God would expect me to help that person. But would I then hand him a business card and be like, hey, come get a tire for me on Monday? No. So sometimes we'll do that. Sometimes we'll go camping with other church members. Our church actually puts on a camp out usually once a year. They'll have a Bible study on a Saturday. We do have a lot of sermons, video sermons that we can watch. We have a YouTube channel. Our church has a YouTube channel. So we could do it that way, but we would prefer to go in person, fellowship, hear the sermon in person, and take the time to make it a normal Sabbath day and a normal church day for us. And so occasionally when I would do those sort of things, it'd just be a family outing or with another family, or we might do a long weekend camp out or something like that. But we should make sure that day that we're not, promoting or filming or having to work on a Jeep or even really set up camp. I try to be a 0 day where, we're here today. We've already set up yesterday. We don't have anywhere we have to be. Eat some nice meals. Make it a nice, restful day. But that's not all the time. But even then, I'm not working. I'm not promoting a business. I'm not making money. I'm not doing, my normal thing. It's, and I like to spend time out in nature. I find that nature itself is awe-inspiring, and it's a reminder to me of God's creation. So, all right, I've talked about this long enough. Let's get into the good stuff, right? I have wanted to talk about this for a while publicly, and between the podcast and YouTube, maybe a couple hundred people listen to it, and maybe some people just skip right past and didn't want to hear this, and that's fine. But maybe for a few that know me or been around me or whatever, you go, oh, that makes sense. I didn't put two and two together. I knew there was something there. Didn't want to ask. Now you guys know. If you have any questions, just ask me. So let's get into the news. So typically I got a little piece of paper and it's got all the news on it, but I've got this one almost memorized. There was a leaked email yesterday. I talked about this on S3's TikTok and Instagram account, but I'm going to share it with you guys. So there was a leaked email that said that in 2025, Ram was going to keep the Hemi. Now there's been talks about this Hemi going away The EV mandates were really what was getting people concerned, these manufacturers, and everyone was rushing to get an EV out because they thought they were going to have to. And now that Trump's rolled these EV mandates back, we're seeing things like this. And so it looks like from the email that they're going to keep the 5.7 Hemi and the Ram 1500. Not only that, they're talking about a 6.4, so 392 option and a 1500. That's never been done. You can get a 2500 with a 6.4, but a 1500, that's interesting. They're talking about the TRX is coming back out with more power. They are going to push back the Ram Rev, which is basically a hybrid vehicle, a hybrid truck. It's a little bit different than most hybrids. It works like with a generator. They're going to push that back a year. Then the Jeep, on the Jeep side, they're saying the 392 will be back for another year. Sales have been good on them, and I know it's sad because a lot of people bought the last call editions, and there's actually even been a lawsuit regarding that. But Chrysler won the lawsuit, and they, to their knowledge, thought that it was going to be the last year of it, and they have been able to, through emissions regulations and the different fines they get for not having a certain amount of MPG across the fleet, they've been able to hold off and keep that 392 coming out. And we don't really want to see it go away because a V8 in a Wrangler is the pinnacle. It is the golden years of a Jeep Wrangler. And once it goes away, it's not coming back, and you're going to be back to having to do these swaps yourselves, and they're just as expensive, and I've seen them done cleanly, but they're still not quite factory. And in some cases, that's fine. You put a Helifin in one, that's cool. That's awesome. But if you've been in a 392 and then you've been in like an LS swap Jeep from another shop or an LT1 or whatever it is, there's usually another computer running at the same time. The body's different. You got to take the body off the frame, but like the body control module is different than the engine management, the fuel management, and it can get hard to diagnose problems. It's tight, and if it's that 392 just comes to you so packaged so well, and it's got great pickup and power. The exhaust is nice. I just think it's a really nice Jeep. If something I could afford, I'd have one because it's sweet. The other thing they talked about is Ram getting back into NASCAR. That'd be cool to see them in the truck series. They haven't been in the NASCAR for quite a while. And for some reason this year I've been following NASCAR just a little bit more. I'm not sure why. But it just seems a little more exciting this year. Some of the race teams get mixed up, some of the drivers. It just doesn't seem like the same old. So it'd be cool to see Ram get into the truck series. I'd like to see that. And then they're saying it's the last year of the Durango. I like the Durango. Looks good, especially the SRTs. The SRT8, Dave's has one. My buddy Dave, Saddlebrook. I like them a lot, but I get it. They got the Grand Cherokee L, the Wagoneer. It makes sense. I get it. So that's all the news I have for you at the moment. That's pretty off-road related if you're into Ram trucks or Jeeps. Doesn't cover everything else, but we did have an opportunity this past or last week to do a lift on a brand new Tacoma. In fact, we had a brand new Tacoma. We had a brand new Gladiator last week and a brand new JL this week. So it's cool to see some new vehicles coming in because it's been a while since I've been seeing a lot of new vehicles. The interest rates got so bad and the prices were so high that we're really working on a lot of people's used. Maybe there's a couple years old, but kind of the new business has slowed down. So I'm starting to see that again. But I really liked when I got in that new Tacoma, having the spring and shock set up in the back instead of leaf springs. And we did a nice little lift on it. We did a ready lift with Falcon shocks on it. And it was just a really nice riding truck. And easy to set up. 3.5-inch lift. 35s. Just a nice truck. So, like that. So, I know the Titan, not the Titan, the Frontier's a nice little pickup. I like the Pro 4X. I think you can set it up pretty similarly. And those are nice, just a little... Yeah, be a good trail rig. Be nice for just trail riding, overlanding, that sort of thing. I always like seeing them built. I like seeing the Rangers built. I like George's from Scottles and Bottles. It's just good looking. I like a truck for overlanding. It's just there's a lot of different things you can do modular wise with it. So that's the news for now. I'm gonna end with recovery. So something I always like to, or what I've been starting to do is show you guys a piece of recovery equipment that I use off road and what it does and explain it. And even though you might know about it or not know about it or whatever, I just like to go over it. But instead of showing you something today, I wanted to talk about winches. A winch is a game changer. It's the only reason that I feel comfortable off-roading alone or just me and my family. We typically don't tackle super hard trails, although we did Hot Springs last winter, just us. But there was other people out on the trail. Makes you feel a little bit more comfortable. We have gone some pretty remote places overlanding, but having that winch is really something that makes me feel comfortable. And I've had winches fail on me, and I've been stuck off-road because my winch has failed, and that was my only piece of equipment. So it's really important that you pay attention to what you're buying, in that you buy once and cry once. On the lower side of things right now, the Smittybilt Gen 3 has been a really good winch. Had one for a couple years on my Jeep, really liked it. 7 horsepower motor. Here's a little thing you might not know. If you get a 10,000 pound version or a 12,000 pound version, the motors are exactly the same. It's just the winch line that's different. So that's a little hacking, save some money. And right now I'm running a mile marker 12K, and I have absolutely loved this mile marker. It's the body of it. It's all metal. They've had a military contract for years. Really well built. They're based out of Pompano Beach, Florida. Been really happy with the mile marker. It's customizable. I've got a black one, but you get it in blue and red and yellow and different colors. The price point to me is what I would call middle of the road. If you start off the price point is like a Badlands steel cable winch, maybe it's in the higher range. But if you take a Smittybilt Gen 3 and you're comparing it to a Warn Xeon, the mile marker is a middle of the road price range. But I think to me it's that higher quality. It's when we're talking tires, Michelin is the highest quality of tire for a passenger vehicle. And for a long time, Warn winches have been that Michelin. And to me, they still are if you're buying an American-made, made in Oregon winch. Which ones would that be? Well, it'd be your Xeon Platinums. If you're buying a VR, it's made overseas, and it's a better price point. That VR is still a really nice winch. They have had some issues. Part of them, I think, was with the remotes. I had a Xeon on my two-door JK, then moved it over to my LJ, and then put it on a buddy's TJ, and it's still going to this day. Over 7 years, that winch has been great. But that was a made in Oregon winch, made in the USA. Sorry if you're hearing some background noises. Not only is my shop right off a main road, but there's a train that runs by about once an hour, so you're hearing that train. I grew up right on the other side of the train, and I don't even hardly notice it, but I'm hearing it through the mic, and so that's what I'm telling you. And I'm not going to edit it out because it's a real world thing. You get the vibes of what's going on here in the office right now. But anyways, that would be my top 3 right now. If I was like, let me get a budget friendly but quality winch, I would go with the Smittybilt Gen 3. It's your choice if you want to go with an XRC or an X2O. One has a wireless remote, one doesn't. I think the XRC comes in a 9500 instead of a 10K. I think it's the same winch. I don't know how they get that rating or don't. I would always go synthetic. We can talk about that in a second. And then I'd be hard pressed right now. If you want to go to the next level, do you go with the mile marker or the Warn Xeon? Because to me, the VR is in the same league as that Smittybilt. They're both made overseas, and the VR looks great. I like the symmetrical look of it, but the Smittybilt doesn't look bad. The warranties are similar. You're probably going to get better customer service over the phone with Warn. But right now, I'm really enjoying my mile marker, and I recommend it to folks all the time. A lot of people just don't recognize the name, but again, they've had a military contract for, like 80 years. You can fact check me, it's 70, 80 years, something like that. They do a great job of building a winch. I like the way they look. You don't necessarily need a 12K. You can probably do a 10. I got a 12K because I'm always helping buddies get unstuck. It's good to have a little bit more than maybe what I want to need. So I'm going to talk about what you might need in a winch. I would always go synthetic cable for a Jeep, potentially a truck. And the reason being is it's lighter, it floats, it's safer if it breaks. It usually typically drops to the ground. It's not a piece of metal flying through there that's going to get you killed. When you're pulling the line out, you don't even really need a glove. It's not harsh on the hands. Where if you got steel cable and it needs to be lubricated, it's harder to unspool. You got to wear a pair of leather gloves. They still can poke through when they fray. If I had a side by side and worked on a farm, or worked in a lot of rocks, or drug the line a lot across the ground, that might be a case where I would say steel makes sense. But I use an abrasion sleeve when I'm rock crawling, and I put that on the rocks or against the tree, and the synthetic works fantastic. So 99% of the time I'm recommending synthetic line. Wouldn't consider anything else. And you can convert your old steel winch to synthetic. You need to get a Haas Fairlead instead of a roller Fairlead. What do you need weight rating wise? Well, the rule of thumb is you take your gross vehicle weight. Okay, so let's try to make an easy number here, right? Let's say your vehicle loaded down is 5,000 pounds. And it's probably light, but I'm just making an easy number. So then you take that, you need 5,000 pounds, and then you would say half of that on top of it. 7,500 pounds would be kind of the minimum you need to unstuck that vehicle. It'd be even nicer if you had a 10,000 pound. So now you've got kind of double your weight. That helps. Another thing to keep in mind, if you're using a snatch block, what is a snatch block? It's like a block and tackle where you can hook it up to a tree with a rope and you can run it back to yourself. You can then double the pulling force of that winch by running from the winch to a tree and back to you to help yourself get unrecovered. It's now doubling the pulling force. So if you've got a winch that's got a line on it that's not rated for that double the pound, like let's just say you weigh 5,000 and you get 75, but now you've doubled it and that rope's not rated for 10,000 pounds, there's a chance the rope's going to break. So keep those sort of things in mind. I've got a 12,000 pound winch and I use a snatch block. It's going to pull 24. That rope or the steel better be rated for that. My bumper better be able to handle that. The D-rings or shackles or soft shackles I use better be rated for that. So keep those sort of things in mind. Rule of thumb to me, if you've got a TJ, a Cherokee, maybe even an LJ, YJ, CJ, Samurai, something small like that, maybe even a two-door JK, 8,000 pounds, probably do you just fine. 10K, 9,500, not bad. It may come down to the bumper that you choose, that you might need a little smaller profile winch, and an 8K would be probably just fine for you. And then the price point usually changes. And then when you get into the four doors, whether it's a Wrangler, 4Runner, some of the heavier trucks, in the mid-size trucks, I'm meaning like Tacoma or something, Frontier, maybe a Gladiator. A 10K would probably serve you fine. And a 12 it might be a touch overkill, but if it fits in your bumper and everything's rated for it, then you should be just fine. And then if you've got a full-size truck, well then you're probably going to want to run a 12K. And are there bigger winches than 12K? Yeah, they make them bigger. They make industrial winches for shipping and different things like that. I've seen 16,500 pound winches. I've seen hydraulic winches. The problem with running that on a full-size truck, you better have a bumper that can handle it. And that's when you're going to probably start looking down that Warren road where they'll make a 16.5K winch, and they probably make a bumper that holds it. And I've had a guy that had an Amazon business, and he's like, I need it to pull my drivers out. They get stuck all the time, and I'm going to use the winch to pull them out. I actually kind of shot myself in the foot, and I was like, I would actually get a kinetic rope. Make sure you got a recovery point on your truck, have a recovery point on that other truck, and snatch them out. Because this is my final point on the winches. To me, a winch is a self-recovery tool. And when you decide to pull someone out using a winch, it's going to be wanting to pull you towards them. So it's kind of not what the winch was designed for in the first place. It'll work, but you're usually having to chalk a tire, put it up against a tree, hook yourself to a tree. It's putting more strain on it. It really wants to pull you towards that object. You can use a block and tackle or snatch block or whatever to make it work. And people do it all the time. Recovery companies, off-road companies. Typically, if I can recover someone with a kinetic, that's the way I'm going to do it. Sometimes I have to do it with a winch. Every situation's different. But I like to think of a winch as getting me unstuck tool first. And I think about my needs and what I would need to get me unstuck. And so that's why I wouldn't necessarily be concerned with, well, I've got a, 6,500 pound vehicle, but my buddy's vehicle's 12,000, so I better get a 12K so I can get him unstuck. That might be a little too much for your little vehicle, It's something to keep in mind for sure. And when it comes to recovery, experience is hard to learn. You know what I mean? And that's why I've been teaching a couple of recovery classes lately. We just did a video on our Bronco recovery class. I've got a lot of experience. I've been stuck a lot. I've gotten a lot of people unstuck. People have gotten me unstuck. And I've learned something every time. I've made mistakes and I've grown from them. And I've, put them in the notepad in my head and say, okay, I won't do that again, sort of thing. So, winches, it's going to be, that's your big gun in your arsenal for recovery, and you need to take some time to think about it and try to decide what it is that you need, what bumper is going to work with it. I always thought it'd be great, I've seen it a couple times, but to have a rear winch. I've even thought about the idea of you can buy these cradles, and I've seen Harbor Freight sells them, some other companies sells them, and they could go in hitches. And then take your line, take your wire, your power and ground, and put a quick disconnect. Kind of like something that would run, you can buy these, it's not like I'm making this up, a forklift. So it's like a quick connect. And then be able to switch that winch from the front of the Jeep or to the back of the Jeep or whatever truck, switch them back and forth, and then, throw it in the cab or throw it in the bed or whatever when you're not needing a winch. I'm like, that, could work. Thought about it on my Comanche because currently my bumpers, they're not winch bumpers, but they both have hitches on them and recovery points. We're trying to, out of the Comanche, build the best trail riding vehicle, not the best trail rig, not the best rock crawler. Just something that ride good down the trails, nice, easy rider. We're looking at it today and we're like, should we have gone long arm? Should we go 37s? Should we put an Dana 44 in the front? Should I do drop down brackets? Because it was supposed to be a 4.5 inch lift all around, and now we're starting to. We got the new leaf springs in. We decided to go leaf over, and it's more of a 5.5, 6. So we're matching the front, and it's like, this is getting turned into a rock crawler pretty quick. So we're trying to keep it simple and humble and honest and genuine to our original plan, and it's been fun. If you get the opportunity, please check it out on YouTube or on S3 Mag, our build process. If you get a chance to come see it at the shows, please do. Our next Jeep night is going to be the 20th. 13th. No? 20th. Got that wrong, sorry. The 20th at Elixir Brewing, and that's right across the street from our shop. We're at 239 East Marino. I think they're 115 Main Street. It's literally, we almost share a parking lot. It's that close. And so we'll be there. And my goal is to drive the Comanche over to it next week. And that in no way means that it's ready. It'll if we get the drive shafts in from Adams fast enough, we just got the transmission in it. Motor's good. Put an SYE in the transfer case. Had to get a new transfer case. Put an 8 1/4 rear end out, pulled the 35 out. Avery re-geared the rear, new leafs in the back, new suspension in the front. And if we can get in at least, I'm not even sure that brakes are going to work that well. but we can put a rear drive shaft in. I haven't re-geared the front yet, and potentially just drive it across the street and park it and show it. And it's dirty and it needs work and whatever. But for me, I like setting these like, all right, you got to have it to this point by this date, and then take it to a show, and it kind of puts the right pressure on, because the next thing it's got to be a Jeep Beach, and my goal is to drive it down there, because I could tow it, but that doesn't prove that much to me. Proving something is our build was good enough to drive the 8 hours down to Daytona Beach, and it's here, and I'm going to drive it 8 hours home, and then 2 weeks later drive it down to Panama City, and then 2 months later take it to Smoky Mountain, and most likely we're going to transport it to Vegas, because I don't want to drive out to Nevada and back. Although Andy from CanCut keeps tempting me with a good road trip, and that'd be fun. Don't know if this year's build will be for that. I think next year's build. That's right. I got plans for next year. I think it'll be perfect for it. All right. On that bombshell, as Jeremy Clarkson would say, we'll end the show. I hope you enjoyed it. I know it was a lot of me talking, and I appreciate you listening. If you made it this far, I appreciate you. Thank you. Hey, like they say at the Hardy Chevrolet, we love you and we need you. I hope there's an adventure in your future. Eat your prunes, and we'll be seeing you.